the time. So it's got one more. It's probably just us tonight because technically
he's not here.
Louis was what I suggested, but his choice. I don't know if I'm going to be at your house tomorrow. Jimmy, are we recording yet? All right, it's 6:01. Let's go ahead and start. Should be a relatively light agenda for tonight. Dean, if we will note attendance as appropriate, and we'll move on. Let's move on to agenda approval. Do we have any revisions or comments in regards to the agenda?
If we have time, could we add a just brief discussion of adding a parliamentarian for council meetings? Because I believe we do not have one.
We're gonna we'll add it to the top of the list of discussions. I do have one other one of let's move Teamsters collective bargaining agreement to be ahead of lodging tax. Is that good enough, or do you want it all the way up? Okay. The other two will take full time. Okay. Any objections to that? The switch of those two orders of 3 and 4? All right, with that, we'll move on with the agenda as so revised and move on to approval of minutes dated November 21, 2023. Chair has no questions or comments.
Same.
All right, so we'll take the minutes as presented as approved. Let's go on to consideration of claims approval report dated December 11th, 2023. I have no questions in email from any of the council members. I have no questions or queries. You're good with?
Yep.
All right, we will take the claims report as presented as approved. With that, we will move on to agenda item number 4, which is Teamsters collective bargaining agreement.
Thank you, Chair. So we have last week, the Teamsters voted.
It's not fair if you talk in the big head voice on contracts. It's just not right. We got the mics off.
1, 2, 3. All right. Last week, the Teamsters voted to approve the tentative agreement between the city and the Teamsters. And that was on Thursday. So we're bringing it forward for the Monday meeting for ratification. This is a contract that goes for 3 years and it is retroactive to January 1st. Some of the big changes in this contract is the elimination of double time. So, and that goes retro back to the beginning of this year. Additionally, we eliminated some liabilities that the city was experiencing. Uniform allowance was being handled as kind of like a store credit down in Issaquah, and there were times where employees had spent beyond the limit and the city got a bill and then we had to run down that extra money. So we'd spend $400 in staff time running down $5. So that is no longer going to be the case. Staff will be getting issued shirts from the city when required, and they will be receiving a check for the remainder of the uniform allowance. So no longer is there an open credit down at any stores. One of the other big changes is the contract is now in English. It is no longer in lawyer. So a lot of meetings went into going through and writing it at an appropriate level so everybody can understand what it says and go from there. If there are any specific questions on the articles, I can attempt to answer those. Or if there's specific questions about the numbers in the staff report, Jenna is available to answer those.
So what, do we know what the budget impact will be?
If you go to the agenda bill, the third page discusses the total impact. And you can see the required appropriation increase would be $534,000. And you can see that broken out, 198,000 of that relates to the general fund. 69,000 would relate to capital funds, including utility and non-utility capital. 144,000 relates to the utilities. And then finally, 124,000 relates to internal services, which would then be allocated out to the remaining funds. The served funds, I should say. It is worth noting that that amount is lower than the total. Some of those costs are absorbed within the budget because we've had vacancies and because of how overtime relates to our personnel pay. So it would have been a higher amount, 732,000 over the 2 years. However, we are assuming that the difference between 732,000 and 534,000 can be absorbed by the 2023 budget.
You have a question? Go ahead.
So I was a little, I thought that's, let me just verify. When I was reading this week, I got to the part of the budget impacts that says the remaining 197,000, I think what you were just referring to, expect to be absorbed by the current biennial budget. I didn't understand that sentence. I suspected you meant it was because of the vacancies that had previously been discussed, but
Correct.
it didn't exactly say that. So I wanted to be sure that I wasn't assuming
Yes,
incorrectly.
I would say in most cases it is because of the vacancies. There could be some situations where we started out with someone who has more experience and
Yep,
then we
and
switched
you
to.
mentioned that. Yep.
Okay.
Sorry, I should have said that.
Yes,
Yeah.
those
Yeah,
two
you
are
did explain those well. It wasn't clear to me that that was the 197. Okay, and so am I right, if I understood this correctly, for 24, we're assuming everything's full. But then on the look back, we're just looking at what actually happened and saying, hey, we've got 197 there. So we really are only short appropriation. We're only short the 534, 469. Is that right?
Correct.
Got it. And that, just to be clear, that's to cover the retroactives, the 2023, the 2024, less the offset, total appropriation needed
Yes.
then is the 534, 469,
Yes.
which was spread across the funds the way you just said. Yeah, just quick question, the 500s, the internal service funds.
Yes.
And if you don't know, that's fine. Maybe we could find out before council meeting, but are those mostly charged back to general funds, or is that just not a statement that can be made that easily?
I wouldn't say that it's mostly charged back to general fund. I would say, I mean, it's spread throughout the city. Anywhere that somebody's using a computer or using a vehicle. So utilities are a big user of those. Certainly a lot of it would go back to fire and police particularly.
If you would be able, maybe by the council meeting, to just tell, so I'm not asking you to do work, look forward, just do a look back and say if we looked at 23 or 22, either you want to look and just say, it ran about this kind of a split, roughly X% to general funds, Y% to utilities.
I'll do that. I'll
And
have that.
if there's a Z% to capital funds, I don't know if that's a thing, but just to give us a rough historical, so we just have a sense of that.
Okay. Yep.
Thank you.
So, and on the chart, so just to make sure I understand, column A is if we were fully staffed. Column B is the cost savings because of those open positions and other things. Instead of 372, you only need 175,000 additional appropriation.
Column A is based on actuals. So we have already paid X amount and we believe we need column A more to pay Teamsters. However, because there have been vacancies, because experienced hires have left, replaced by newer who maybe have a lower salary, there's some cost savings there. And so that's the needed appropriation is column B. So column A is based on actuals, and we have applied the terms of the contract, the CBA, to determine how much more money we need to pay than today, than we've already paid.
Contract.
Please.
All right, let me see if I get this as a right way to, I'm trying to say it like in a summarized way. Column A is what we would have had to pay if everything had been fully staffed at the experience levels that we originally thought. However, because that wasn't true, we have the benefit of some underspending because of those things. So in fact, we only need the 174 that's in column B. So therefore B plus C equals what we need, which is the 534, or is that not correct?
I wouldn't say it quite like that.
Okay.
She said something down.
Our
beginning to track.
Our personnel expenses are much higher than 372,000.
Sure.
But we applied everything that we've paid during 2023. We gave everybody the pay bump that we assume that they're getting and adjusted for double time and things like that. And we assume that we need approximately 372,000 more than we've currently paid. We base this off of October numbers. This is estimated for November and December. So at the year end, once the CBA is totally enacted, we believe that we'll need to pay 372,000 more than we've currently paid. However, when I compare how much we expect to pay to the Teamsters and how much we budgeted, in some cases, because of vacancies, because of changing of positions, we still have enough appropriation. So column B says, we need to ask you for more appropriation than we already have.
Yeah, where is she? Make it happen.
Let me try to see if I got it right this time.
Okay.
We're gonna have to write checks for 732,213. Granted, 2024 is an estimate, but assuming our estimate is 100% accurate, which they always are,
Always.
we would write checks for 732,213. However, we wouldn't have to raise our appropriation by that amount because we have some underspending because of vacant positions and different levels. So we've already got some of that 732 covered in the existing appropriation. So therefore, we only need additional appropriation for the 534. Did I get
Spot
it
on.
right that time?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, cool. I'd rather have broader discussion at council than us dive too deep. So I think we get this stage, I'm good to go. We move this to council for further discussion. You have other questions?
Well, I've one question, which I would just say I would like to ask him. I'm not looking for an answer tonight because it's more an answer for the full council. But when I look at where we ended up, 60th percentile, and so on, one of the concerns I know that administration has had and that council's had is not just the question of negotiating with the union and meeting, coming to a meeting of the minds, but also a concern about being able to fill vacant positions. Are we paying enough to fill these vacant positions? Something that we've worried about. So at this, where we've ended up, so I'm not asking for an answer tonight. I'm not even sure I'm asking it the way I ought to ask it, but it would be, I think, good if administration could sort of tell the council, hey, look, we think, we'll see, but we think that this is going to be what it takes to, fill our staff positions. And we think, we're satisfied in that regard, or actually we still have some concern, like whatever you're willing to say on that topic, or you think is appropriate to say, I think would be helpful.
I think.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no guarantees, right? But just, hey, did we end up, because I know, okay. So that, and then the only other thing is that I think that we should not, council, ever approve any spending that is above our appropriation without raising the appropriation to cover that spending. So if we need 534,469 of additional appropriation, I think that appropriation request should come simultaneously with this request, because otherwise we'd be voting to spend money that is, and I begin to wonder if it's even legal, but we're voting to spend money that we haven't appropriated, and that doesn't seem like, forget the legal comment. That's not the point I'm trying to make. The question is, we ought not to vote to spend money that we haven't appropriated to spend. And so we ought to just do them both at the same time. We know why this number is what it is, so let's bring the appropriation request at the same time.
When are the retroactive funds due to the body at large?
There is no date. We are going to attempt to get some of them out before January 1. Primarily looking at the people who have separated this year that are due a check. And then the remainder we'll be working on after January 1, because right now we're in the switch of the payroll, which is the #1 priority.
So how hard would it be to have we can introduce it, an agenda bill for a change of appropriation to cover this in the next council meeting?
I'm looking at you because I'm being called for jury duty, so you're the one who's gonna have to do all the work.
Oh, he's taking the out.
I'll say that it's hard. There's a reason why a lot of cities just have 1 year-end appropriation or amendment to the appropriation. It's a lot of staff work. It's some money. There's some money involved, and I don't know how much it involves from people who aren't me, but an amendment can be a big ask. That's not to say that it's impossible.
But this is very focused, you know the numbers,
Mhm.
and it's coming out of reserves. You know the numbers, you know where it's going to. He's got a point. If the intent is to cut checks by the end of the year with no matching appropriation, it's not clean. I'd rather be clean. So if you can, it'd be nice to have the appropriation memo at the next council meeting so we could do it.
So that would be for the first reading.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the second reading would take place in January.
And then you can't cut the checks until January.
Understand?
Okay, if we've now moved that time frame to say we can't really do it to January, you can have the appropriations at that second reading also. I'm not gonna be a Scrooge and kill somebody's Christmas over this if there's no reason to do that.
But if you do take action at the first reading to approve this contract, and I can cut those, I'm trying not to do W-2s for people that have left 2 years later. I can do those few checks under the appropriations that we already have. I should be able to do that, correct? Because
I don't know what the dollar figures are, whether that's a true
it's
statement.
not a lot.
So in terms of legally and appropriations, you've got a whole another, so it's a biennial appropriation. We've
Correct.
spent, okay, it's not exactly, but let's say half.
Yeah.
Right? So in a sense, you've got half the appropriation still available to you. So these small amounts aren't going to blow you past the appropriation.
Correct.
So I think that doesn't get in the way of what you're trying to do procedurally, unless at that discussion, which I don't anticipate this happening, but unless the council will say, no, we're not going to do that. Well, then it's like, okay,
All
wait
bets
a
are
minute,
off.
but if we have this introduced and the council isn't objecting, then I think it would be reasonable to proceed, knowing that still needs to have the second read. Also, it gives a chance, just because of time, it gives a chance to give us a first read. And if we don't have something quite right, it gives us a few weeks to just, now I know people are away for holiday, but still before the next council meeting, there's time to just clean that up if it needs any cleanup before the final read and adoption. So it seems like there's a couple of reasons that would make sense. The key here is that you get a read from the council as to whether they're objecting. I don't like generally the notion of spending beyond the appropriation. But if we've had that conversation with the council and they're that you're not seeing any objection, then I think you're safe. Yeah, you know, it's a little not clean, but it's not really a big problem in my view.
We'll be able to do it under this year's appropriation. I mean, we're talking small amounts.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't want to do the other 2024 monies for 2024.
That's the cleanest, right? It just
Yeah.
keeps everyone clear on, yeah. But I make another comment. I do want to say, I know that some cities, particularly smaller cities, do the once a year. I think those tend to be annual budget. Most cities, as they get larger, do not do that. If you go to Issaquah, for example, they pass a budget amendment every single time. Sorry, let me try an appropriation amendment. Every single time they increase spending above the appropriation. They just do it hand in hand with, so there is diversity in practice. This is absolutely the case. The better practice, in my view, it's an opinion, the better practice, I will point out that the larger the city gets, the more they do the thing that I'm promoting, which is pass the appropriation when you decide to approve the spending. I think it's good discipline for the council. If we're going to spend the money, by God, have, approve the money to be spent. Don't, say, go spend this money and then later on say, oh, how are we going to?
Well, later on, have an argument of why is this appropriation going up?
Exactly.
You're the guys who voted it in.
Just have us take that responsibility in the moment that we're approving the spending. I think it's just good.
Okay,
Good practice.
if you can stay within appropriations and pay those who have departed prior to the end of the year, go for it. Okay, but before we do the full deal on this, let's have an amendment on here to adjust the appropriation. Okay, and that's probably first meeting next year. But have a good Christmas.
Well, wait,
You want
but we'll have
to,
a first reading this time.
Well,
right?
first reading this time,
Yeah.
second reading at the beginning of the year
Yeah.
with an appropriation adjustment memo to accompany.
So
Okay. Well, the memo doesn't, yeah, it's covered. It's basically covered here, right? The memo that already, this is the memo.
Numbers are there.
Yeah.
That just outlines what the agreement is.
Yeah.
It has the numbers there.
Right.
It needs to be in the adjustment memo or agenda bill or whatever to actually enact it.
Okay. All right. So what will we have at this council meeting then? We'll have a first reading,
We'll
right?
have a first reading of the contract with the Teamsters.
first reading for the appropriation to cover the contract.
I thought
The
what he said.
contract's a resolution,
The issue is if we don't approve the contract, he can't make the payments.
correct?
So what he needs is he needs the contract approved, which only takes one read. What I'm asking for is a first read of a budget amendment and then a second read in January.
Okay, cool. If we can then, again, are you ready? Will you be ready by council? I guess
Sounds like we have
FNA
to
for
be.
me to introduce an agenda bill to match with this, to have appropriation.
Sounds like we have to be.
Okay,
To be clear, I don't think that memo should be any more than, in terms of verbiage, it's what's in this memo. There's nothing more. This says what needs to be
yeah,
said.
that's why.
It's,
We
there's
We
just putting.
we just
into
gotta
the
write an
form of-
ordinance and then have it reviewed by the city attorney in time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By tomorrow.
Well, or
By Monday,
No.
or by Friday. I mean, I assume it's not gonna be on the agenda because it's not ready tonight. We will introduce it next Monday. So it'll be a pop-up. But
Okay,
do the work and whatever.
Easier to add it now than to add it on Monday.
Great, who's got it written up? What am I approving?
we'll get it taken care
Okay, but guys, if you don't have it here tonight, it's not part of the agenda we're approving for next Monday. Therefore, it's a pop-up. It has to be introduced to the agenda at that stage. Go ahead.
So maybe a suggestion of a way to do this is on the agenda. We have a discussion topic, but not an agenda bill, and then we'll bring the agenda bill on Monday because that's when we'll
That's
have
cool.
it.
Cool, yeah, Teamsters contract budget, appropriation adjustment, have it as a discussion item. We will move an agenda bill onto that as part of that discussion. Again, I'm sorry, guys, but I'm a real curmudgeon that the agenda that comes out tonight does not change between now and next council. If there are changes, they're introduced in that next council.
I just have a procedural question. If it's the first reading of an ordinance, does it need to be in that packet? Is that part of the part and parcel? Or are we okay to introduce it the way you suggested?
I check with the attorney, but I think we're okay because we're not really acting on it. We're just doing first reading.
Yeah, I think, so what I'm expecting procedurally will happen is that on Monday, we'll have, and not prior to Monday, but on Monday, we'll have a agenda bill and a budget, sorry, an appropriation amendment that we'll hand out.
Okay.
But that'll be at the end of Monday, which is why I think Councilmember Holler was saying Monday, because we've got till then. And I was trying to make the point earlier, the legal review may not be complete at that point. If it then get complete subsequently, and we have to make a few changes to it, they're not going to be substantive. They're going to be just getting, things in proper legal order. If we have to make those at the second read, fine, we do that then. Does that procedurally make sense?
Absolutely.
Does that seem workable?
I don't think that we can walk on a first reading of an ordinance. I think it has to be. I mean, the RCW, you have to, give notice and do the first reading and the second reading. So, I mean, we can walk on the discussion, or I can put it on discussion, but I don't know that we can walk on an ordinance first reading.
And do we think we can, and you would have, so to meet the notice requirements that you're thinking of, that would have to go out probably with our notification that goes out
Thursday.
Thursday. So then that would give us Wednesday and Thursday to put something into
Agenda bill,
an agenda bill.
an ordinance. And then we would have to put it out there for the public to see.
Yeah. But to my point, if legal review wasn't completed at that point, only say a preliminary, you seem to have the right form, but we can then modify that at a second read, right? We just have to have a correct form of amendment in order to do a first read. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it would just be a lot cleaner for the public. If we can do the discussion and then we do first reading on January 8th and second reading and adoption on January 20 something, whatever the date is.
15th. I gotta do 14. I'm sorry. So it'd be the 22nd, whatever.
For the first read?
No.
No, 8th for the first read,
yeah.
22nd for the final.
For the final.
I got nothing I can throw on the next agenda. Tonight, I got nothing I can throw on there. Now, you're still good with those who have left. It's just those.
So you're gonna approve this on the 11th and then do that kind of gets sideways with what we're trying to do
Well, we'll approve this bill.
without the appropriation.
Yeah, be careful. Don't get me stuck on that because I'm trying to help you out here.
I understand. I appreciate
Which
it.
side are you arguing on? We approve the contract. I still want to keep the discussion about we need to change appropriations, but that's not going to be ready till the 8th. If it has a public notice requirement in front of it that I can't bring it on the agenda without having it go out in advance to the public. It's not going to happen till the 8th. We'll do it the 8th and the 22nd to approve the appropriation. And from there, anything above your current appropriation that you want to pay, you can pay at that stage. I'd rather actually just get all of this out before the end of the year so help the shopping season. But I can't.
He's worried about the economy.
Well, some of that money will flow around here. Go ahead.
So maybe a way to, because we're trying to finesse this, a couple goals here. I could imagine us having a conversation at council discussion, which we just talked about the need for a appropriation amendment. We could finally say budget amendment. And maybe I could see making a motion to the council. I might initiate where we ask administration to bring us an agenda bill at our next meeting.
Right.
So that way the council would have had the conversation, would have expressed their desire to do that. And then perhaps everyone would feel comfortable. Okay, we've said we're going to do this. Now let's go ahead and approve this thing. Does
Oh,
that make
yeah.
sense? And then,
Still,
we've asked you to bring it.
22nd. January 8th and 22nd, it'll be the.
Unless
actual
you waive
appropriate-
the second reading.
Unless we waive the second reading.
Yeah, I thought about that, but then we'd have to have it ready, like for final. Oh, you're talking about in January.
In
waive the second-
January
Yeah,
8th.
yeah.
Do first and final reading.
So we can still cut the checks in December then.
Because we'd approve see, that's what we're trying to get to, is approving this.
Right.
On Monday, because you need
Correct.
that to cut the checks, right?
Right.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. You need that to cut the checks for the limited number
Correct,
under your existing appropriation.
correct.
It's not the checks in totality.
No.
Right.
We have no
Checks in
physical,
totality cannot go out until the appropriation memo is agreed to.
and we have no
Is approved.
physical ability to get those checks out in that timeline. So, yes,
Okay, as long as
Absolutely.
we understood to get the checks out, there's two sets of checks now.
I'm trying to avoid having to carry former employees in the new system for a W-2 in 2025.
Let's not do the paperwork. Okay.
So if we go back to this chart, this stuff in column C happens during 2024. It may not, I mean, that may be spread over, well, it will be, it'll be spread over paychecks. Like that's a whole bunch of, it's this retro stuff that he needs to get done.
Yes, but we'll do that.
But only a portion of that.
Yeah.
Only the portion of that for employees who have left.
Just make sure you got that.
No, that's what he's been saying.
I'm sorry.
So that, well,
So the way I said it, do we have the ability to put this agenda bill up on the screen?
put that table up,
The table that's on page 3?
but that is not some,
No, correct. It's this guy at most. But let's find out from him. Is it that guy or is it some lesser?
well,
amount?
define what? So the first batch of checks
Mhm.
is within here, but less than that. It is only
it's a-
only for employees who have
Yeah,
left.
who've left.
The rest of this, he can't do under his existing appropriation. He's got to wait. Even the
Are you catching this?
remaining retroactive stuff, he's got to wait till the appropriation memo is approved.
Yeah, sorry, this didn't help after all. Don't worry about it. But it's what,
I'm really
Yeah,
trying to get her
agree.
out of here.
I know. yeah, I think, so we're all tuned in.
Understand.
Okay.
All right.
Any more? I'm good with that. Let's take it to council. We'll take your
Thank you.
little ones. Or one, I don't know which. All right, and with that, we'll move on to LTAC.
Hello, Nicole Weeby, Community Liaison, LTAC Staff Liaison. Councilmember Hallway, you are the council member of liaison. So the agenda bill here tonight is to approve 2024 funding. I just want to do a little shout out that we're ahead of the game, that we got back onto the schedule of doing these things in the year before the money. I'm not making any sense, but anyhow, we
No,
did,
it's
you,
good.
you understood.
Yes,
Thank
good.
you. I appreciate that. So, would you like me to read it all, be formal, or what would you like me to do? Or would
Can
you?
you bring the table? I think if we talk the table real quick and we get this done real quick. So we had $175,000 budget out of LTAC. We had an ask for 192,800. So had discussions of note, the change, we had two private organizations asking for LTAC. And you'll see those as the Snoqualmie Inn and the bike experience. We said that was probably not appropriate for LTAC to fund those activities. But the hotel wanted to put lights on top of the roof and whatnot. So
Wait,
we
say that again?
wanted to put the Christmas lights on top of
back
the
up.
hotel.
The Snoqualmie Inn.
Ah, so
Snoqualmie,
it's
so we
not
took that out.
Snoqualmie winter lights down here, which
No.
is what
No.
I
That's
thought.
a
and I
different-
They
was worried
wanted to
about.
put lights on as part of, to be participatory with the lighting program, but it was lights on their building.
Got it,
Right, so that took out that line that you'll see there for 5,000 came out.
got it.
Okay. But that brings me back to the top line, which is the city's Snoqualmie holiday lights. Well, we did push $1,000
Hmm.
back into that to say, hey, doing the hotel, but there's that set of trees there right on Parkway. That'd be nice continuity to have those trees lit up on the other side. So we put $1,000 to say, hey, let's look at that and see what we can do. That may or may not happen. Nicole has to go and really investigate what we can do there and how it works. Okay, so where's that? After we did, well, then the other item was the Snoqualmie Historical Society. If memory serves me right, correct me, Nicole, I believe we went and we said we would match what North Bend was doing.
Correct.
Correct.
The Historical Society through the years has usually applied for money, not always been funded any money. It's kind of been not haphazard, but sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Quite a bit of discussion was on these applications, being that the actual museum is in North Bend. There was some active conversations with the applicant during the meeting, and based on those conversations, the committee arrived at these funding choices. In particular, the Twin Peaks exhibit will be housed somewhere within Snoqualmie, whether it's in the depot or even Dirtfish would be interested in hosting it. So the actual exhibit part, am I right? Part of the funding is that it has to physically be in Snoqualmie. And then the weekend staffing, that $1,200, yes, that was because of the funding that they get from North Bend.
Yeah, figure, I mean, the North Bend's gonna get 80-90% of the benefit of the money. We thought 10 to 15, we'll fund at that level of 10 to 15% of what North Bend did. Okay, those were the big, and having done all that, there was $200 left. We put that on the railroad days, said,
Mhm.
Richard,
Get
do
a sur-
something fantastic for $200. It's a good event, and it really does impact downtown here with things going on, and that was 175K. It was a good meeting and very cooperative among the members. It was very nice.
Hmm.
The question,
Perfect explanation. My thought is, so first off, perfect. Yeah, I got that
But-
part. Second, no, not but. I
Perfect for
think,
you and a perfect for me.
yes, two perfects. I have some stars here. I can do.
Okay.
My suggestion is one of two things. Either write what you just said. Actually, you don't even have to write all of that. Some of the, the main points, and send it with this and have it on consent. Or don't have it on consent. Say what you just said. This will be done. But I think without that information that you just gave,
What was the information that you found helpful to the chart?
I was particularly coming into tonight, I was particularly interested in the Snoqualmie winter lights. I didn't know what that meant, and I was alarmed.
but it's in general of
No.
any place that the.
No, I
what
understand
was
now.
assigned
Yeah.
is different than what was requested. Why?
Yes, although I'll tell you on the city of Snoqualmie winter lights, the $1,000 explanation you just gave. I don't think, I didn't have that question, but,
How
or the
about-
$200.
How about if I give an explanation, update this memo to give an explanation that the reason why these two applicants were not funded and the reason why, then I feel like that should satisfy the questions that you had.
Okay, I'm ready to move it on consent without that, but
Yeah, but you already know someone's gonna pull it off consent, so. But if we put that on there, then I think it
We're
sails
not
through.
here now. No, you are. We got one more council, don't you? Ah, dang. Anywho,
So yeah, just, but I think that's great. Leave it on consent, but just revise the memo to add those 2 points.
can you do that, Nicole?
I can do that.
Thank you.
Mhm. So just an explanation to the line and to Snoqualmie.
Yeah, so the
Okay.
Snoqualmie, because the project name.
It was
looked
confusing,
familiar,
I'd
Yeah,
imagine.
I didn't know what it
Mhm.
was. And once you guys said it, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then actually, I kind of guessed on the trailhead mountain bike, but anyway, if you just throw that in there. And then the Historical Society, since it's so much less than the request. I think those were the 3 things that,
Okay,
if you just explain those
I
3,
can provide it.
just can't
I'll
imagine.
just maybe do like an asterisk on each one and then on the bottom, just an
That'd be-
asterisk
I
with
think
the
it's just
line,
that
just,
simple.
okay, I can do that.
Just so they don't, the other council members feel like, okay, I understand this,
Okay.
without having to pull it off consent and get it,
Okey dokey.
Fine. Move that on. We'll put that on consent. We'll move that forward to council with that. Let me get back up to the top. That covers the agenda items for us tonight. You wanted a discussion on parliamentarian?
Yeah, well, all I want to say is so previously, the whole time I've been on the council, the city attorney was the parliamentarian. So I guess that's no longer the case. So we just need, I think, to have a parliamentarian available or have a discussion at council maybe about whether we need a parliamentarian. But it seems to me that we ought to address this, not just be in a position where we don't have one.
So, but I'd rather, because so I guess I'm gonna ask the mayor and city administrator to look at options. Maybe there's existing staff that would be here who would be willing to go get the certificate that makes them a parliamentarian. Or whatever, but there are occasional questions about parliamentary procedure. We ought to have somebody to talk to, but it's in no way, shape, or form something I think we need to contract a person to sit here for 3 hours every Monday night and do that. Just no, they never.
Wouldn't be worth the money.
99.9% of the time, they'd be having popcorn in their jammies. Is that reasonable?
Well, so we just did another brush up on parliamentary procedures this past week. Councilmember Washington, Councilmember Christensen, and myself attended. And so it'd be great to have, council members attend those so they learn more about it. And there's also the, Robert's rules for council members. We have all that information. So we just need to, follow what's in that.
So you're telling me no?
Well, who would you like?
No, I'm just,
You're saying don't pay for someone for 3 hours.
I'm not saying pay somebody for 3 hours, but I am saying there is a requirement for, I don't need council members arguing Robert's Rules of Orders or whatever else. I need a kind of third party, not necessarily third party, but kind of third party that we can look to and say, how do we do this? And so my question was, can we satisfy that minor need, occasional, well, major need, but very occasional required need in-house by some means? And I'm sure there are certificate programs or whatever that, and I'm just asking for options to state.
Right.
And I'm, peace, educating us is not working. I need something other than educating us to have that external authority that we can refer to say, is that really what, a procedural, what's the one I use? I use it inappropriately every time.
You say
Question.
point of order
Point
when
of
you
order.
actually are
I
trying to ask a
do it.
question.
I do it inappropriate every time. So if
Or
the
when you're
question
trying to make
comes
a
up
point,
with,
yeah.
is that appropriate as a point of order? Somebody we can look to and they can go, no, Councilman Holloway, you're just nuts.
So we can talk about it with our city attorney.
Yeah.
Okay.
And give us his suggestion or look into a certificate as well.
Right, I think, did you want to say something or?
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
Yeah, I think the point is, and the reason that Robert's Rules of Order has parliamentarian as a position is people of, with good intentions will disagree sometimes. And so the question, the point is, you want to have that resolved as quickly as you can and move on with your meeting. And that's the whole concept of parliamentarian. So you don't get caught up in,
It's a third party arbitrator.
yeah, that just sort of says, hey, you said you're going to follow Robert's Rules of Order. There's a question about what they are in this case. Here's what they are in this case. Fine. Boom, we move on. So it's just to avoid it's to avoid problems that people of good intention can get into. People have bad intentions, then we're gonna have all kind of mess, but we'll deal with that when that happens.
Well, same thing. With bad intent, it'll still be, that's not the way Robert's Rules of
That's
Order is
right.
law.
That's
Still need, and again, as opposed to council members arguing.
Yeah.
The third party comes in and says, no, this is the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah.
And it's just something to go with that just is not Joe Schmo's opinion, but Joe Schmo
Knows the rules.
has
and
an
knows how
internet
that says, yeah.
certificate that cost him $15 late one night that says he's a parliamentarian. But what's appropriate, I leave it to you guys, come up with some ideas and see what we can do. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right, with that, we have upcoming agenda items. I didn't think we were going to go into those discussions tonight. With that, we will move on to review draft agenda. Draft agenda starting at 6 p.m. Council oath of office for positions 2, 5, and 6, and community survey results. Okay. I was trying to figure if that could be compressed into 30 minutes, but I gave up on that with my discussion myself. With 7 o'clock, we'll move on to the regular agenda. Call to order, pledge of allegiance, agenda approval, public hearings, utility, fiscal, health, and rate study adjustment.
These are second reads.
Yeah, second rate. All right, and well, we're gonna have a public hearing in regards to that, and then
Mhm.
we'll get into appointments of finance director, both. Have we confirmed?
No, see, because all three of them were on short.
No, I'm not talking
Oh,
to council.
okay.
Right here, it says finance director.
Oh, right.
Oh, confirmation and oath of office. Okay. Okay, never mind. I withdraw question. Committee commission appointments, reappointments, no.
No. That's it's
Oh,
not
okay.
committees, it's
That's,
commissions.
all right, it's overstated. That's that stuff. All right, never mind. I thought that was liaison positions, everything
Right,
else. We'll
no,
cover
no.
that after the first of the year. AWC Advanced Certificate of Municipal Leadership. Okay, and that's presentation to Mayor Ross. We'll have a service recognition. Councilmember James Mayhew. Do that. Hope that's not a surprise to you. Thought it might have blown it. If it was a surprise party. All right. Ordinance, utility, fiscal, health rate study adjustment, and we'll go to the Valley School District impact fees for 2024. Both are second readings, probably for approval that night, and move forward. And then we'll move into, I'm missing something though. All right, we'll move into, from there, we'll move into approval of city council meetings, approval of the claims, approval report dated. Oh, there it is. And approval of lodging tax with your alterations. We'll have in the consent agenda. From there, we'll move into ordinance of utility, fiscal, health, and school district. And then committee reports, nothing for public safety, nothing for community development, nothing for parks and public works. No, I'm not gonna ask, never mind. And then we'll get F&A, we'll have the Teamsters collective bargaining agreement, kind of per the discussion we have. Do we still want at least a discussion item there of appropriations provision to support?
Yeah, so if we could have that between 13 and
Yeah, right after 13.
right after 13, it'll sort of likely end up being. Anyway,
Part of
whatever,
the
let's have
discussion.
between 13 and 14, yeah.
And then we'll have
Sorry, could you go?
we'll have discussion on revenue options, presentation by Jenna, and committee of the whole, mayor's report, commission, committee liaison reports, department reports, okay, executive session, Do we think we'll have exec session? We'll have two. Okay.
Oh, two?
So, yeah, and I think
Hmm?
city attorney is going to tell you which ones. Yeah.
Okay. Then from there, adjournment. Looks good. Go ahead.
It looks pretty light. Seems to me,
For the last meeting
She
before the
thinks-
holidays, what are you about to suggest?
that we don't need, just have everything in the regular agenda, that we don't need a roundtable. We don't need an extra hour. She thinks we're gonna spend a long time on LTAC.
Chair.
Maybe-
Yes, sir.
The revenue options report is on there. That could take some time.
That's the only one I wasn't sure about.
Yeah.
I'm
So do you
happy-
think that might be a long one, huh?
And I'm happy to
Because
get it,
it'll get into a discussion.
Correct.
and I'm happy to get out early.
Okay, I'm cool with that.
Yeah, so
good.
let's go ahead. and
The
start.
only thing I thought was, just perhaps we could, sorry, Mayor, perhaps we could, at the regular agenda, add to, I don't know where it'd be appropriate, but somewhere at the front, because it's possible that some members of the public might tune in for the regular agenda, but not the roundtable agenda. I think it might be nice just to mention that we, the three council members who've had that oath of office, that was administered, earlier, but then in the regular session, just acknowledge the three of them again.
Right, and then they will actually have the oath of office again in January.
Right.
Right.
But there's still one, I
Right.
guess, one face that's new, and it would be nice to just say in the regular meeting, hey, they did take the oath of office, and the three of them now are stepping into it, because for those that might have missed it at 6.
Right, good idea.
So maybe we could add that. Where would that go? Like,
Well, we'll just include it in my script.
oh, for the front, for the opening of the meeting?
Yes.
Sounds great.
We do have one other item that had been approved in community development meeting, not last night, but the previous one about the Snoqualmie Valley Economic Alliance MOU. And remember the presentation? Everyone was
Yeah, I'm
gung ho about it.
Yeah, because it wasn't this meeting, it was the one before, right?
Right. Right. And so at that point, they talked about just bringing it on the consent agenda and passing it. So we went to add
So
it.
that
So
that
CDC heard it?
the CDC did hear it and did agree with the notion that ought to go forward, and seemed like a consent type of item. There was no concerns by any of the council, but any of the committee members. So I mean, I'm not the committee chair, but there was no, it seemed like it was approved to move forward, is my recollection. And consent seemed like what the kind of discussion we were having.
Right.
I just don't recall. Sorry, exactly. But anyway, yeah, it's up to you.
Well, I got no problem moving it forward with just I'm debating consent. Just put it on consent. If I'm grouchy that night, I can always pull it out. Go ahead.
Well, the other thing is we put it in the regular, and I'd be happy to move to bring it up to consent, just at the time we're adopting the agenda. Whichever way you want to handle it, I'm saying we
No,
could
put
go
it
either
on-
way,
Put it on consent.
and then someone can bring it off if
Someone
they're
can bring it
concerned.
off.
Okay,
We very seldom have we actually move an agenda item onto consent.
it's true.
And always the other way, so
Way.
it threw me like, okay.
Oh, you just got used to, oh wait, I won't say her
It's
name.
much
You
more
got used to
efficient
what's her
to
name.
pull it than to put it.
Yeah, it's
on
true.
consent.
It is true.
So let's go for efficiency. Maybe we'll get out
I
of it.
like efficiency.
Okay. All right, with that revision, if we'll add that onto the consent agenda. I have no other revisions, comments on the agenda. We're good to go.
Yes, sir.
All right. Anything else for discussion tonight? Stop that. All right, unless there are objections, we'll move to adjournment.
All right,
Hearing no objections, we are adjourned.
great. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Sorry, you hit